NBS Frontline.
While presenting the financial year budget for 2025-2026, the Minister of Finance, Matia Kasaija, indicated that the debt burden has now hit over 100 trillion shillings, insisting that Uganda's debt is sustainable and is projected to remain.
The stock of public debt is projected at $31.5 billion, equivalent to shillings 116 trillion by the end of June 2025. Of this, external debt accounts for $15.49 billion, equivalent to shillings 56.3 trillion, and domestic debt $16 billion, equivalent to 59.77 trillion.
And while it continues to grow, encroaching on the discretionary expenditure, the minister maintains the government can still handle.
As a ratio of GDP, our public debt is estimated at 51.26%, which is consistent with the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. Madam Speaker, Uganda's debt is sustainable.
The Minister of Finance, Matia Kasaija, who presented the 72.3 trillion shillings, emphasized Uganda's trending economic growth, which he says Uganda has evacuated itself from low-developed countries. He stated that the country's intentionality to grow its $500 billion economy is on track.
Uganda's economy has taken off. Can I repeat? Madam Speaker, in conclusion, Uganda's economy has taken off. When I did this thing, people started it. We know what we are doing, man.
The budget, focusing on economic growth, has also seen an increment to the salaries of soldiers under the UPDF, a Uganda presence among others, aiming to bolster the nation's security apparatus through modernization and professionalization efforts directly impacting the various security services.
To the gallant men and women in uniform who are serving in UPDF, in the Uganda police, in the Uganda prisons, and the intelligence services, this budget contains money to improve your welfare and capabilities. Continue to serve your country and keep it as safe as you have always done.
Among the critical focuses of the budget include the election activities, which the government says is committed to ensure it delivers a credible election. In this realm, the government says is to finance and protect the nation's borders and enforce peace among the political actors.
My name is Simon Kagwanjala. Like Minister Kasaija says, Uganda's economy has taken off. Off to where is one of the questions that we'll be probing tonight. We'll also be doing a reality check behind the rosy figures, how inflation is being contained, and how government has an ambitious program to ensure that over the next 15 years, the economy is spurred in areas, especially agriculture, especially tourism, and other sectors. Who took the biggest share? We'll also be doing a deeper analysis. I'm joined tonight by the experts. One from the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Henry Sebukera, the Technical Advisor Budget. Thank you for joining us and a very good evening.
Thank you.
Julius Mukunda from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. Good to have you and a very good evening.
Thank you. Good to be here and good evening, viewers.
Honorable Semuju Ibrahim Nganda, the Shadow Minister of Finance, spokesperson for PFF and Member of Parliament, Kira Municipality. Good to have you and a very good evening.
Thank you, Njara.
Well, the economy has taken off, according to Minister Kasaija, as he closed the budget reading. Do you agree?
You see, the economists have theories, and they use those theories to paint pictures. Sometimes I made a response in Parliament. I have also today issued a statement responding to the budget. The ordinary people, the lives of the ordinary people hasn't changed much. And you can read this and many other budgets, and their lives are not going to change. In my presentation as Shadow Minister for Finance, I told government that this budget was not financing, was not meeting the social, economic challenges Uganda is facing. And I did give figures as they are captured in the population and housing census. You have a population of 45.9 million. 62% of that population, which is about 28 million people, are in agriculture. The figures, official figures, show, they keep changing, that about 39% of the population are in subsistence agriculture. 39%. That is about 14 million people. In the budget, that the money supposed directly to help the 14 million people who are in subsistence agriculture is 1 trillion. Each parish will get 100 million, which they will share. If you allow me, I made a response built on 2 areas. This budget of 72.3 trillion, 27 trillion is going to be debt servicing. But I also, finance didn't provide us with enough information. They tend to hide it. But a bit of it we are able to establish. Because when they tell you they are going to debt service 27 trillion, which I think is about 38% of the budget, then you need to break down the debts that they are paying. What is surprising is that Uganda borrows money to help private people pay their debt. Because
let me hear this again.
Government borrows money to help private people pay their debts. In this budget, you have 60 billion that has been given to ROCO. They mismanage their company. But we've provided them with 60 billion to go and, because they owe banks about 400 billion shillings. So in the next, I think 5 years, we will be helping ROCO to pay their debt. You have money that you are giving to Democratic Republic of Congo because of our indiscipline when we went to Democratic Republic of Congo and we were taken to the International Court of Justice and lost the case. We are supposed to give Congo a total of 1.2 trillion shillings. So we are paying about 246 billion every year. It is in the budget that Kasaija has read. We've given in this budget 465 billion to Pineti, constructing Entebbe, constructing Iruboa Hospital. In total, we will give Pineti, because we have so far given about 700 billion. So we are adding up 465, which will bring the total amount we've given to Pineti to about 1.2 trillion. In the budget, you're also giving Mubaje, the Mufti, 14 billion to pay a debt because he sold Muslim property in Zimbabwe to 2 buyers, and one of them went to court and had been obtained an order to go and attach the National Mosque. So we've now put money for Mubaje in the budget to go and pay debt. So when finance presents a debt servicing as 27 trillion, you need to break it down for the citizen to understand.
Yeah, but you seem to be painting a gloomy picture.
Yes, because you see,
where is the beautiful side of this budget? To the extent that
you have a budget of
local revenue.
You have a budget of 72 trillion. 27 trillion is going to on debt servicing. 8.5 trillion paying salaries for about 400,000 people who work for government. And then in the budget you have, again, for the same people, about 4 or even more trillion to facilitate them to do their work, buy them vehicles, money for donation, money for fuel, money for workshops, money for entertainment, special meals and drinks. I keep referring to Parliament where I serve. You go to a committee of Parliament, MPs were fairly paid. But in the morning they are going to ferry food, mandazi, commando, everything. You're supposed to be 35 people, only 7 attend a meeting. In the end, I don't know where that food goes. But in the budget, you have about 200 billion shilling for special.
For mandas.
For special. They call them, they give them names, artificial names. They make them look very sweet. Special meals and drinks. So you're going to spend about 12 trillion on government employees numbering about 400,000 who are less than 1% of the population. So you have 27 debt servicing, 12 trillion, 16% of the budget for government employees, and then you have 7 friends from Pineti to Roko to Mobaje to everybody. In the end, if you look at the structure of the budget as presented and was read today, you have about 28, either 28, 29, which is recurrent money for the items I have mentioned, and if you furniture, what. The money for development in this budget is 6 trillion.
Well, I'll get back to you. I'll invite the expert from the ministry, Mr. Henry Sebukera.
Yes.
You are part of the drafting and everything, to the extent that when I look at the theme, we're looking at full monetization of the Ugandan economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. But the key areas that you raise here are given a paltry budget. What explains the contrast?
Thank you, Simon. And maybe just to correct the question, the key areas of the budget have actually been prioritized and well financed. And that can be actually elaborated with numbers. I wanted to first put the numbers correct, then I can come to the question. First, we have a 72.4 trillion budget for the next financial year, 25-26.
It was, to be exact, 72.36.
Exactly. So you would wish to add even other zeros and numbers. But if you want to make it a bit parsimonious, you would say 72.4. 36, okay, you know, depending on how many decimals you want to add to that. But out of that budget, what we have to spend on activities of government, both development and recurrent activities, is actually 43.6 trillion out of the 72.4 trillion. Now, the rest of the money is going to areas of debt servicing.
27.
As partly put, but I want to put also the 27 into perspective. Part of the 27 is about 10 trillion, which is not the debt servicing, but the domestic debt refinancing, which is just a restructuring of our debt, that we can substitute short-term debt for long-term debt. So that's why I wanted to put the 27 trillion figure into perspective. But Simon,
making it worse.
If you allow me to speak to the prioritization of the budget, especially the context you've given of the theme, out of that 43 trillion that is available to finance activities of the budget, 4.1 trillion is going to finance what we call the ATMs. As Uganda is driving towards attaining a $500 billion economy, it has prioritized what we are calling the ATMs and enablers. Those are the engines that are going to drive us to the $500 billion economy. The key question, what are the ATMs? The ATMs include agro-industrialization, tourism development, minerals, including oil and gas. And then we have the tourism development. We have the science, technology, and innovation, including ICT, but also our creative arts. And if you read the budget, these have been allocated 4.1 trillion. And we could go into the specifics of exactly what is being financed within the 4.1 trillion. Now, out of the 43.9 trillion that is available to finance activities, about 32 trillion is available to finance enablers. And what are the enablers? Enablers are those areas that are going to help us harness the opportunities in the ATMs. And here we are talking about, infrastructure development, education, health, literally investing in the people of Uganda. But I could go even a little bit into detail into that. If you look at our enablers, actually investing in the people of Uganda is the highest financed activity within the budget. We have about 11.4 trillion that is invested, that is actually provided for investing in the people of Uganda, and about 8 trillion, if you round it off, in infrastructure. And of course, security is our fundamental. So we provide
9 point something trillion?
Because it is the bedrock upon which we build the economy.
9.9, right?
9.9 billion.
Trillion, yes.
9.9 trillion. But I wanted to make a point that it is very good, and I wanted to end with this point. It is very important for us to understand the structure of our budget as Ugandans. It is very easy for us to say we are investing so little in development and so much in recurrent expenditure. If you look at the structure of our recurrent expenditure of 32 trillion, much of it is actually going to buying medicines. We categorize our medicines, the 700, almost 800 billion we spend in buying medicines under national medical stores is actually money we report as recurrent expenditure. The 1 trillion that we invest in PDM activities, which is actually supporting the people in agriculture and agro-industry, is also reported as development as recurrent expenditure. So the financing we give to Uganda Development Bank, UDC, the capitalization of our financial institutions, and other wealth creation funds amounting to about 3.1 trillion is also categorized as recurrent expenditure. So I wanted to reiterate your question that actually this budget is prioritizing financing to wealth creation, to enhance job creation for Ugandans, with industrialization being the vehicle to achieve that.
Well, thank you very much. We're also joined by Honorable Geoffrey Ekanya, Member of Parliament, Toro Municipality. Good to have you.
Thank you very much. Toro County.
No. Toro County, they're quite a number. Sorry for the oversight. Well, Julius, rosy figures, budget rituals, and everything. What adds up and what doesn't add up in this budget, 2025-2026? And does it pass the mark of a pro-people budget?
No, yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, I've looked at these numbers for a very long time, and what I've decided to do is to move away from this recurrent expenditure and development expenditure, because it is extremely misleading. Yeah. Because previously we'd say, hey, recurrent expenditure, these are operations, and then you find people have put their medicine. This is recurrent expenditure. Then you find the interest payments. It's also recurrent expenditure. But then that's where you find the special meals, donations, travel abroad. So what we have decided is that let us look at productive items in the budget and those that are non-productive, and that can give us a picture of where this budget can take us. Mm-hmm. So you want to look at productive items as those that are likely to address the ordinary person's needs. Those items that are likely to where an ordinary person is likely to interface probably directly. even if it's indirect, but it's like a public good that, you know, people are going to benefit from this. So take, for example, I would say that a salary of a permanent secretary and the salary of a teacher and a medical doctor, I would refer you to see that my doctors and teachers are very highly paid. The permanent secretary can do critical work to balance the books. I want a traffic officer, for example, really. So once I'm a traffic officer, I know, yeah, here returns to investment. And
so you're interpreting it ordinarily?
Yes, that's what I want. So at the end of the day, the ordinary person, that's what he's going to look at. The ordinary person probably is going to say, where are the seedlings? Do I have them? Are they the right seedlings? That's the extension worker. Is the extension worker near me? Can I be able to consult and I get the best advice? So based on that, then you begin to follow the money and say, okay, where is this money going? And I think that's for me where I begin to say, okay, I think we are having some challenges, although here we are progressing. So now, once those items are put in place and you put it aside and put the other one that are not productive, then you begin to ask yourself, so how do we balance in terms of who gets what and who doesn't get what? What I've realized right now is that there are a number of very good proposals in this budget. One thing I saw today was that there was a very huge attempt to account for this end of the financial year. And that is something that has been missing in some of the speeches. A huge attempt to say, but this financial year, we have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it's up to us to go and do the clarification, to go and find out whether those things actually have been done. 2 is that there's some proposals that you like. I saw something like Oksevinga. And I think it's something that we've been pushing for us from the civil society to say, if the ordinary person has got his phone, why can't he also buy bonds? So I'm hoping that now we are going to have some bonds of 1,000, 10,000, so that they are broken down, and the person can save and also buy bonds. And I thought that was a very good idea. I have seen we are commercial diplomacy has been also one of the things I have also been promoting. To say that these embassies really, for me, they should only have one main job: to look for markets for our products, period. If you are an embassy in a foreign land, we should facilitate you enough, and that's probably so that you look for the market for our products. And once you get it, you come back and tell us, I have got the market for squared watermelon. And then now government goes back and say, farmers, the other big watermelons we like not to sell them. Now we need to start working on squared watermelon.
There is something very key. Perhaps you could come in here. Minister Kasaija speaks of 10-fold economic growth in 15 years. Do you think that is being overambitious, or it is realistic?
No, being ambitious is okay. Being ambitious is okay, but it depends on what we are going to do about it. All of us have dreams. And it's perfect to dream that we're going to have a $500 billion economy. It is how we are going to change the way we do things. If we expect that the way we are doing things currently is going to take us to a $5 billion economy, I think we should...
$500
billion economy. I think we should still be dreaming. To achieve that, fundamentally, a lot of things must change. Because we have the potential and the capacity to reach there. You can't be... I mean, look at the dairy industry. We can be able to sell milk to Algeria, you know, and the huge potential that is just in only that one country. Just imagine if we have been able to get a market for all other Arab nations who would like to take our milk, and we're able to help our farmers do that, what that would be. But if you come back home, then that's when Katemba starts. A farmer is going to spray the cows that they have ticks, but instead of ticks dying and falling off, they start getting fattened. They get fattened. In the morning, you spray. In the afternoon, the tick is usually even bigger than how you left it in the morning. Simply because of our inability to enforce discipline on ensuring that we don't have fake inputs into the market.
Okay, before I get to Honorable Kanya, to what extent does the budget speak to austerity and the fight against corruption?
Though I think the fight against corruption, we seem to be losing it. Why? Because corruption has also changed in the way it has been in the last 5 years. It's now, we regularize it, like you plan for it, you budget for it, it goes to parliament, everybody looks at it, and now you go on execution. So if you have this bottle of water and it is being supplied to different government departments at different prices by the same supplier, that is corruption already. Because if the market price is 1,000 and the government is buying it at 5,000, you have done it. It's a done deal. So I think for corruption, the minister really, we need more than what we are currently doing to fix.
How about austerity? Does the budget have an element of a government that now wants to be frugal and work within the
I am
framework?
yet to get the savings you have made from rationalization. Because I remember as we were rationalizing, then that's when we brought the post of the assistant RDCs. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, we said we should reduce on duplication and running cost of government, but then we are creating more costs. So the benefits of rationalization, I'm yet to see them. I'm yet to see the benefits of rationalization.
Thank you. Honorable Ekanya, thank you for joining us. Well, we're looking at a 72.36 trillion budget, an increment, a slight increment of 0 point something. You could help me, Henry, here.
From 71.9.
Yeah, from 71 to 72 point.
Yeah. So
Uh,
a few billions increase.
is that something plausible for the country to say there is growth, remarkable growth, and the fact that part of it, a huge chunk, 30 point something trillion, is to be raised domestically?
You see, for the last 4 years, you know, ordinarily this is a budget that would be driven for government to account for the manifesto of the last 4 years. Now we are heading to another election. But because the numbers have not been adding up, the budget for the last 4 years, the numbers have not been adding up from the budget reading to final budget implementation. That's why you see the numbers in terms of from 71 to 72.3, and I can assure you that by the end of this financial year, we might have supplementary and the budget might be revised by even 4 or 5 trillion shillings, and the number may go up. But you see, by and large, in terms
So
of...
you anticipate it's going to 76?
It might go to 76, 75 there, because this election year, and even for the last 2 financial years, numbers have been increasing in terms of new supplementaries. Part of the reason why the numbers, they give figures that are impressive so that they can use within the 3%, they can get the resource that they need for issues that they do not want us to debate and discuss it. But by and large, the politics determine the budget priority worldwide. But the politics of this country cannot determine the budget priority because oppositions have been weakened deliberately. So you find that government sets up the budget priority for it to survive because there are no strong institutions that can challenge. A serious government, knowing that we are heading to election year, will know that what are the key issues that will determine the victory in next election. Issues of job, issues of inflation, issues of market, issues of infrastructure. But in this budget, most of the items my brother is talking about are the 3 trillion, 5 trillion for infrastructure. Most of those programs are multi-year programs. They read it in the 2024, 2025, now it's 2025, 2026. These are multi-year programs that are rolled over. And in terms of implementation is about 30, even 20%, or even zero in some programs. So Matia Kasaya talking about 5 trillion for education. Some of these are World Bank, ADB funded programs that have stayed in the shell for the last 5 years. Or 3, 4 years.
You want to say there is a lot of deception in the budget?
I'm telling you facts. The records are there. Loans that were approved that government has not implemented for the last 3, 4 years, and government is paying commitment fees. It's huge. The records are there. But by and large, then you go down to the real life of people. Yes, poverty level has decreased from 25 to 16. But if you go down in my village in Merikiti, more people are sleeping hungry. But you see, these are aggregate numbers of few people who are in Kampala, few people who might be in some parts of Mbale, some parts of Jinja, but the real life access down there, in terms you talk of allocation, 1 trillion, roughly for drugs, but how many people can access part of that 1 trillion? The resource will be released, part of it will disappear at National Medical Store, part of it will disappear on the way to National Medical Store, maybe about 40% will reach National Medical Store, and even that 40%, some technical people will take, you find that about 20 or 30% will be accessed by the ordinary poor people. So most Ugandans, in terms of knowing that government is going to read the budget, remember when we were growing, those days, people would tune TV, people would tune the radio, knowing that, yes, we are going to allocate this resource. We are going to have boreholes in our village repaired. But call the LOC ones, and you heard the president talk about the geese of the roads. The LOC ones will tell you that in schools, as of now, government is paying for those teachers, but children are being chased away from schools. There are no shocks in schools. You get the point. There are no toilets in most of these schools, and yet resources will have been released. So in terms of accessibility and population benefiting from the figures, in terms of at macro level, it is very impressive. I can tell you, we are doing very well at macro level. Inflation is under control. The shilling is doing very well. In fact, I met some investors, and some Uganda do not want no longer to sign contracts. About a year ago, people are preferring to sign contracts to be paid in USD. But as of today, most business people prefer to sign to be paid in UGX because the shilling has really appreciated. Part of the reason the shilling has appreciated is because of good macroeconomic policy. There I give government credit. Because you see, in terms of our import receipts and export receipts, we get more than $10 billion coming in, and others are coming in informally because of open capital account. Refugees, in marking the way you stay, you have all these Eritreans, all these Somalis, bring in foreign currency. You go to other countries like Angola, Burundi, very tight capital account, you cannot bring money and take it out. That is beautiful. But down in terms of real population, feeling the impact of the budget, the situation is totally different. So, government needs, the purpose upon which we agree to declare the total figure of debt and the total collection was to increase the level of transparency. Beautiful.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Honorable Semuju, how do we go beyond the figures to the reality?
Yeah.
What makes the budget this year's 2025-26 unique is that it's election year. And we've also just had the scrapping of some of the agencies, the RAPEX.
You see, the rationalization, if you speak to government people quietly, they were driven into it without enough and necessary studies. I'll give you
since 2018?
I'll give you an example. Work in Entebbe was merged with the Wildlife Authority. And we are told they are going to reduce on staff and budget. People who are looking at after those animals in Entebbe, all the numbers remain. It became, I think, a department, but their salaries went up because they were merged with the UWA, whose salaries were higher. So immediately the budget went up. That was the case with the population, which I think went to National Planning Authority and others. When we are meeting government people, these people in finance, they will come here and posture that there was $1 trillion shilling to save. You then ask them, so if you saved it, where have you allocated it? So some of the policies, and as civil society has said, the president now has 650 RDCs. Each of those RDCs will require a brand new pickup, some policemen and secretaries. So the budget of State House inevitably now goes goes up, because in the past it has averaged about 500 billion. It is this financial year it is hit $1 trillion shilling. So if you want to understand these figures, you go to the population. You have 62% of the population, as I said earlier, in agriculture. That's about 28 million people. He has told you that the priority of agro-industrialization or agro-processing, tourism, science, and that they are going to put there 4 trillion. In a budget of 72 trillion, they are going to spend 4 trillion on the key priorities in the budget. That tells you the story. But if you want to break it down, then you go to the actual expenditure. I have told, look at local government. Local government, this financial year we are concluding, local government has a budget of about 6 trillion. 5.4 trillion is salaries and other recurring. The money that is available to go for development in local government is about 600 billion. And that is evident. I saw you here, you were profiling Guru. I was in Guru City, I was in Guru district. The reason their budget went up slightly was because you had that money borrowed for the infrastructure. There is no money for maintenance.
That's use bid, right?
Yes, there is no money for maintenance in all the subsequent budgets. When you exhaust the money for constructing roads, they are not going to be maintained. And that's what has befallen most of the roads now in Uganda, in Kampala. We have now just borrowed money from the World Bank for the Kampala Metropolitan to do some roads. But these municipalities that are benefiting, they have no money for maintenance. So the figures in the budget, when they are thrown in your faces, you'll actually think that they mean something. Let me give you an example, Njala. If you look at the money we earn, the foreign exchange, at the moment, I think we earn more from selling of gold, which gold is stolen from Congo, but it's just trafficked through Uganda. And that has been part of the reason the shilling has stabilized. Because the gold stolen from Congo is trafficked through Uganda. They go and sell and return with the physical dollars in aircrafts at Entebbe Airport. The Congolese then use the dollars in our markets here. That's why at one time when they put pressure on the president, they didn't want to pay taxes. They said because they can now traffic through Rwanda and through Tanzania. So this is also artificial. But okay, the gold becomes our number one foreign exchange earner. Then it is followed by tourism. The point that I want to make is that remittance from Ugandans working outside now becomes number 3. And here is the problem. You go to the Middle East, Dubai alone, Pakistan sells mango worth $100 million to Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan sells mango worth $100 million to Dubai. The last time I visited Dubai, they now have even Kenyan mango, and they are labeled Kenyan mango. What is available in all these markets in the Middle East where they have a lot of money? You even see an American president visiting Saudi Arabia, visiting Qatar, because they have a lot of money. We are only excelling in exporting their maids. That's the biggest export that these technical advisors budget provide. Exporting maids and drivers and askaris to the Middle East. I think now we've hit about more than 1 million maids we are exporting. Pakistan and Kenya are exporting their mango. You have 62% of your population in agriculture. And in the budget, official reports from finance, from UBOS, we had only of the 62%, 28 million people are in agriculture, only 2% are doing irrigation. The rest are still hoi kwa mukono. Uganda receives the highest amount of rainfall in the world. Every 50 kilometers that you will travel, you will find a water body, either a lake or a river. But we cannot exploit, we cannot move that water to farms. So as a result, when you have a smallest change in the weather condition, you are in a crisis. What government should have been providing? I mean,
how much was allocated to agriculture?
1.8 trillion.
1.8.
6 trillion.
1.86.
Yeah.
But that's the key priority in the budget. And then you have the president, this financial year, at his residence, State House, he has 1 trillion, including 500 billion classified.
And the parliament has 1.3.
Parliament, I think about 1 trillion. Yeah, 1 trillion, that's the budget of parliament. Of course, I have told you here many times, if I had the opportunity, I would use that parliament by more than 60%. I have told you part of the budget, because you're going to look at the budget of all these institutions.
That would be not cheated.
Don't forget what this money does. You have money that is going to do workshops and seminars, money for donation.
Travel abroad.
Travel abroad. You have travel inland.
For parliament?
No, for all the government agencies. Travel inland. These people you see in pickups going to check on their animals in Ankole mainly. 976 billion travel inland. Consultancy, 633 billion. Remember, agriculture, what did he say they have provided?
1.8.
Now
1.86.
Travel inland, 976. Special meals and drinks, 492 billion. Fuel, 450 billion. Workshops and seminars, 296. Welfare and entertainment, 207
billion.
Yes. Vehicle maintenance, 171 billion. Donation, 168. Beddings, clothing and footwear, 140, and the list goes on. If they give you a broad figure and you don't interrogate it, they will say that they have put money in agriculture, and you actually think that money has gone in agriculture, when the bulk is the salary. And that's why I started with the wages. How much are we going to be spending on wages? And when I was making a presidential department, even asked, who are we employing? Because Kenya recently changed their policy, and they said they will now prioritize technical as opposed to support staff. If you look at the number, the 400,000 people who are working for government in Uganda, you may actually reduce them by more than 60. Majority are just useless. You look at a place like a State House, where we pay for cooks, people who are looking after the president's cows, etc. They are all on the payroll. Instead of having extension workers, in the budget you have 21 billion for General Sare's operation wealth creation that is going to be supervising PDM. Yet the policy is that the money for PDM should go to the account of the last beneficiary, and then they will choose what they do using that money, because that money is a revolving fund that is supposed to be recovered. So if you don't go down to understand the details of where the money finally ends, they will tell you agriculture 1.8, and you'll go home to sleep thinking that actually that 1.8 has gone into agriculture.
Well,
it will end up in Kampala constructing apartments.
We will still be asking, do figures lie? With the